David Cameron has insisted the government is doing all it can to resolve the steel crisis, but nationalisation isn't the solution.
We're not ruling anything out. I don't believe nationalisation is the right answer. What we want to do is secure a long-term future for Port Talbot and for other steelmaking plants. This is an issue where I've had teams of ministers working for months to help this industry, to make sure that we procure British steel for our ships and for other vital industries in the UK. We've cut the energy costs of British steel.
The comments follow an emergency meeting chaired by the Prime Minister this morning in response to Tata Steel's announcement 2 days ago that it wanted to sell its steel plants in the UK, putting tens of thousands of jobs at risk. Dave Nellist is a former Labour MP for Coventry and is now National Chair of the Trade Unionist and Socialist Coalition and joins me now. Dave, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Now, you believe that nationalisation is the way to go, I understand. Why is that?
Hi, Gogan. Yes, definitely. This is a strategic national industry. 40,000 jobs depend on it. It's of national importance and it shouldn't be left to the market and the vagaries of profit. It should be publicly owned, democratically run, and then those jobs and those communities could be saved.
Dave, a short time ago, the former Conservative Chancellor Ken Clarke has said that the government is right to rule out public ownership. I just want to play you a little clip of what he's had to say.
Nationalisation is, I think, irrelevant. I think we should rule out other things, like having a tariff war with China, which would be quite absurd. They're making 1.5 million people redundant in their heavy industries to get rid of the overcapacity, which is the problem for all of us, and we of course can stop them dumping, but we can't start a 1930s type tariff war.
Ken Clarke's thoughts. He says the government's absolutely right. What are your thoughts on that, Dave Nellist?
I'm not surprised that Ken Clarke either rules out nationalisation or is against serious measures being taken to control trade. He's not an ex-steelworker. He doesn't live in steelworkers' communities. I happen to come from that background. Most of my male relatives, my dad, my uncle, my cousins are all steelworkers. I grew up a mile away from 3,000 steelworkers in Skinning Grove in North Yorkshire. Those communities where I come from, with Redcar going last week, are already decimated, and Port Talbot in Lincolnshire, other parts of Yorkshire, we could see the same. We can't rely on people like Ken Clarke to come up with anything that's going to save jobs and communities. For that, we need public ownership, proper democratically run public ownership, with workers in the industry playing a serious role in it. Then we can start planning things like construction programmes and social housing, other projects like Crossrail and power projects and so on. Use steel for public projects.
That's what you'd like to see done, but it doesn't seem that's going to happen. How concerned are you that the Prime Minister's effectively now ruled out, really, that option?
Well, I can remember Prime Ministers going back 40 years. In fact, in February 1971, I sat in a lecture room in Rolls-Royce Technical College in Bristol to hear the then Tory Prime Minister, Edward Heath, announce that it had taken him a mere 24 hours to nationalise Rolls-Royce because it was seen as a strategic engineering industry which was on the cusp of going bankrupt. Now, if a Tory Prime Minister 45 years ago could be forced to nationalise an industry like Rolls-Royce, already we've got unions like Unite, the GMB, the Steelworkers Union itself, Community, the leaders of the Labour Party like Jeremy and John McDonnell, all calling for nationalisation. If there was a serious, determined national fight, David Cameron is no Edward Heath. We could force this Tory government to nationalise that industry.
Labour have said the government have failed to get a grasp of the situation. You agree?
Well, I do. I mean, I know their main demand the last 24 hours has been the recall of Parliament, and Cameron won't even give that. I mean, he recalled Parliament when Maggie Thatcher died, but he won't recall Parliament when 40,000 jobs and working-class communities are at risk. I think there needs to step up the pressure from Labour and the unions. The unions, for example, this weekend ought to be calling a national meeting of all the union stewards and reps in the steel industry and planning from this weekend a battle, not just a campaign, a battle to force the government to bring some proper action to save these jobs.
How crippling will it be if that doesn't happen and a UK steel a buyer for the UK steel industry, for the Tata Steel site, it doesn't come forward? I mean, how crippling is that going to be for the entire industry?
I fear for it. As I say, we've seen what's happened to Redcar last year, and the place I grew up is less than 10% the employment it was when I was there 40 years ago. That's in North Yorkshire. And Tata or any successor private company, they've got a legal responsibility. Their only legal responsibility is to make profits for their shareholders. We should have different priorities. We should be looking at strategic national industries like steel and saying that they're publicly important, so they should be publicly owned. And then we can decide on the level of steel production based on what we want to build and plan in this country, not on what makes a profit for some private company.
Dave, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us here on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Nellist, a former Labour MP for Coventry, now chair of the Trade Unionist and Socialist coalition, reacting there to David Cameron's comment.